our photographer, David Flower. I'll drop, so you are more than welcome to download and use those as you see fit. And with that, I will now turn it over to Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this news conference. A few of you have been asking whether or not there's any big news to be stated today. What am I going to announce today? I want you to know there's no big announcement. This is really a chance for me to connect with you. As mayor, I've placed a priority on consistently meeting with members of the community and attending weekly news conferences and working to be visible to all of our community and approachable for those that want to speak with me. You know, I often work 60 hours a week and on weekends to be accessible to every one of our residents. I had the thought a few days ago to start hosting these media sessions just to give local reporters an opportunity to ask whatever is on your mind. Now, for full disclosure, I have to give credit to Joe Bruno and to a reporter who recently said I was not accessible. Joe requested an interview with me last week, and that was my motivation for moving forward with regular briefings. So give Joe credit, and then you can buy him a drink later to say thank you. The plan moving forward is to provide these Q&A sessions once a month. If you're interested, then we'll do them. If not, then I'll just come down here and kind of just talk to the public by myself. But I think you'll be interested. Before we get to your questions today, I want to quickly mention a few items of interest going on in the city. First of all, with the 4th of July holiday approaching this weekend, I want to ask everyone in our city to please be careful with your fireworks and your grill safety. The most important thing about a holiday in this community is to keep everyone injury-free. And I know that's a priority for our first responders. So please be safe this 4th of July. Starting next Monday, July 5th, the city's paper bag mandate will go into effect for all yard waste. So this is a reminder, no more plastic bags for your yard waste. Also a reminder that Monday, July 5th is a day that we are going to pick up the trash and recycling. Even though it's a city holiday, a holiday that for many, they're going to be taking this time off. But I want you to know, put your cans out because our solid waste workers will be out doing their jobs. Speaking of jobs, we have an important opening in Charlotte in the City Hall building. The city is accepting applications for the newly created Arts and Cultural Office position. The deadline for that job posting is Friday, July 16th, and I can't tell you how important filling this position is to the future of arts and cultural in our city. You know, many of you are really aware of our Corridors of Opportunity program. And I want you to know that we have now started the playbook process for the Albemarle Road corridor. You know that Beatties Ford Road and West Boulevard have already got their framework for the work that they're doing to make our corridors better for our city. I want to encourage everyone in Charlotte East to get involved in the Albemarle Road program, to make sure that your voices are heard, to help shape the development of Albemarle Road into what you see as the future for your community. So, you know, when we start these, there's always a way to participate, and we need you to participate with a survey. Please text the word EAST to 73224 to get started. Again, text the word EAST to 73224 to participate in this survey. And then finally, our work with the Legacy Commission is moving forward as planned. The city staff spent last Saturday at Druid Hills Park to get recommendations for changing the name of Jefferson Davis Street. The community can continue to make suggestions until July the 18th. So for the latest information on the Legacy Commission, visit charlottenc.gov/legacy. charlottenc.gov/legacy. Okay, those are my keynotes for this week's conversation and this weekend as we go into the 4th. So now I think it's time for questions, and Corey is going to help me facilitate this. And let's see, who's the first question? Who's first with the question?
Thank you, Mayor Lyles. Our first question this afternoon will go to Mr. Joe Bruno.
Mayor Lyles, thank you for the shout out. That is really funny. And to all the other reporters on the call, I'll be in South End this weekend, and you can listen to the mayor and take her up on that. But no, seriously, thank you for the access. I think that we all would agree that regular news conferences would be welcome, and I would look forward to that. My first question for you has to do with the epicenter. We reported yesterday it's heading for foreclosure. What is your vision for that site? I understand the transit center is also something that the city is looking at redeveloping in the future as well. So that's a pretty big chunk of land in a prime spot of Uptown.
I couldn't agree with you more. That is a big piece of land and a prime site in a city that wants to have a really strong center city, opportunities for people to come and gather in our space. So I can't speak to the foreclosure. I expect that that will be something that will be litigated and all of those things that are taking place. This is something that has been of concern to me, and I have been looking, what have other cities been doing around these kinds of changes that are taking place? We're not the only place that communities are changing as a result of the pandemic. Although I think the epicenter was questionable for us for several years. The way that it was constructed and designed made it difficult for our police officers and the security folks to monitor it. I think we've had some things that we were certainly disappointed that they occurred close to our investment in the arena and our center city investments. So what I think we're going to end up having to do is take a look at what the opportunities are at the end of a pandemic to say, how are other communities reshaping what the center city will be? Now, if I could have my favorite thing, I think open space is always a good thing. But I know that that site is very, very valuable. It is one of those, and it's not just in terms of economics. It's valuable in terms of bringing jobs, creating opportunity for people, and our transit center as well. But it's amazing that that transit center is as old as it is. And think about it when we go to our electric buses, how different it will be for people. So the best thing that can happen as a result of this is that we get together and have a plan and look at all of the sites in the area and talk with the community about what works best. I expect Charlotte Center City partners and all of the surrounding businesses will want to participate in that effort, and I think it's a good thing for us to begin to plan for.
Our next question will go to Allison Kuznets from the Charlotte Observer.
Hi, Mayor Lyles. Thanks for the question. Now that City Council is finally taking a little bit of a breather for July 4th, can you talk about what are can you describe the dynamics and relationships within the City Council the first half of the year, and how much do you worry about what effect that may have on city politics, city business in the second half?
Well, I think the dynamics of this council really started to be a little bit different in March of 2020. If you'll recall, we are sworn in December, and by March we had entered into a shutdown for the pandemic. And I actually have to say that this council has allowed the health and the science, the health director particularly, I want to compliment always Gibby for what she does for our county, but they've allowed the council step back and they allowed the science to dictate what we needed to do. If you also recall, the council actively worked on providing the CARES funding. I think we pushed out over $70 million to individuals, which is very different from a number of communities across this country. We put money in people's pockets. And while we created the task force efforts with the small groups of the council members, and I know there were some bumps along the way, but I believe that the ultimate goal during this pandemic, to trust the science, to make sure that people got money in their pockets so that they could continue their businesses as well as continue to live in their homes, that has been very successful. So the dynamics of this council is that we are all actively engaged in making the city better. And sometimes I think we forget what we've done well, and we focus on what's not going so well, and we focus on where we disagree instead of where we agree. But this council, I have a lot of confidence and faith in the ideas that we can move forward together to again address the things that need to require this kind of engagement. If you would ask me why I think that this is the case, you might think, well, am I just being Pollyanna? I am not Pollyanna. I understand when you're doing big things that are really going to be sustainable for the next generation instead of where we are every day, that requires substantial debate and often substantial disagreement. But when a decision is made, I think that we're all going to get behind it. Specifically with the 2040 plan, we're going to take a look back, and I've committed to every individual council member that we would ask two questions. What did we do well, and what would you do differently before we start the UDO process? Because the UDO is the place that we codify, put the law into our words. Our actions will take place, and there will be real consequences. So doing that is one of the most important things that we can do. And starting out with a process and a plan to acknowledge what we can do better is really important. And doing what we can do better, particularly when it comes to the council being more engaged. And I want them to be more engaged. So we'll start off with actually, I think by August or September, the adoption of a process for the UDO that outlines roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. And that will bring us to a place where we can have a really good discussion for one of the most significant acts that this council can take, not for today, but for the future.
Our next question will go to Hunter Sines from WCNC. Go ahead, Hunter.
Hi there, Mayor Lyles. Thanks for taking time for us today. I know my colleague Ben Thompson pushed you on this about a day or so, but with all due respect, a yes or no question here. As you know, if the elections were happening this November, we likely would have already heard from you by now on whether you would seek re-election. Although the election is delayed, though, will you run for re-election for mayor?
Well, Hunter, my understanding is of right now, the filing for next year elections starts December the 6th at noon. So why don't you ask me that question December the 6th at noon, and then I'll be able to give you an answer. Now, let's just go to the election, though. This election is dependent upon something that's going to be really significant for us. And in the next several weeks, I'll be appointing a redistricting committee of the City Council. We already know from our census data that we have grown to over 900,000 people. I think we came 300 people fewer. If we had had 300 additional people, we would have moved from 15th to 14th as being the large cities in the country. But we missed it. But that's okay. We still know that our growth has been significant. And the redistricting committee of the council has got to establish new boundaries, new lines for our districts. And that's going to be very, very important. And if that's done well, I think that we'll be ready for elections next year, especially for the district representatives. But I think, Hunter, I want to say something to you. You made a significant announcement today. And I want you to know that I think that it takes courage to actually say who you are as a person and to be accepted. And I hope that you know that we in this community believe in inclusion and acceptance. I hope that what you did today by announcing your own personal announcement will empower others, especially young people that struggle through this so often and so long that it can actually make a difference. So, Hunter, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Our next question will go to David Hodges from WBTV. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Mayor Lyles, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I had planned to ask something else, but since you mentioned Hunter's great announcement yesterday, I wanted to ask about your progress in the Non-Discrimination Ordinance. Where does that stand right now with the city, and do you have any regrets that Charlotte has not done that yet while other cities in North Carolina already have?
You know, did you just ask me if Charlotte had not done that? I think a
I
couple
know.
of years ago, I raised my hand at least twice to do this. Our council has been adamant that we are going to pass this non-discrimination ordinance. And why? Not just for the LGBTQ plus community, but it's for everyone in this community. Everyone in this community should have the ability to be included. And this council, just think about the Legacy Commission, the immigration community task force that we've had. This council has exhibited and worked really hard to live our values of being welcoming, diverse, and inclusive. So we had the opportunity, and when the state said that we could adopt this law, we knew there was never a question about if we would. It would just be when we would do it. And we want to make sure that we get it right. So we've said August the 9th, we're going to vote on our non-discrimination ordinance. And we've been working on it for several months. But I would say that this council committed to it for several years. You remember the backlash that we stood tall and said it's going to happen. You remember all of these debates, but just think about how things have changed. Apple is going to be building a place in the Research Triangle Park. Apple CEO is a gay man. This country, I would like to include our state, has been following what I believe the Charlotte leaders have expressed, that we want to grow. We want to grow in a way, as I said, that is inclusive of everyone and everyone having those rights and abilities to live in our city.
Our next question will go to Emma Withrow from Fox 46.
Emma?
There we go. Sorry, I think I was muted
That's
for a
okay.
second. Hi, Mayor
At
Lyles.
least I didn't say, you're on mute, Emma, you're on mute.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing this. My question is, why did you lobby leadership of the Black Political Caucus the weekend prior to the vote on delaying the November election to come out publicly to support your position when delaying the elections wasn't legally required?
I did that because I believe that this community has got to understand the role of the African American voter. I am a member of the Black Caucus, and the Black Caucus has supported me diligently. But more importantly, the Black Caucus at one time had just the idea that they were going to get people out for a vote. But the Black Caucus leadership, and I give a lot of credit to the chairperson and her executive team, they are now looking at what does it mean to be a Black voter in public policy. And this was one of the areas that there was a discussion about what the public policy will be. But if you also recall, this is not the first time that the caucus has stepped up and said that this is how Black voters feel about what the work is of the Charlotte City Council, the County Commission, and the school board, because they took a position to support the County Commission on withholding the educational dollars from the school system. So to me, the reason that I bring these issues up is that I have a responsibility as mayor to this community, all of it, absolutely every single inch of geography. But I also understand that the caucus has a role to represent the African American voter, not just to say who to vote for, but why to vote for them. And that was what I asked them to do. And they made their own decision. It was a great debate. I listened in on it, but I think that I certainly wish that the caucus continues that effort, because many of the people in this community don't feel equally represented, and they need a place for their voice. And they took that stance because they wanted to be heard.
Before we get to Katie Soloff in just a moment, a quick note to a couple of our reporters who asked questions at the beginning. If you will lower your hand and re-raise it if you have another question to ask, that'll indicate that to me. And with that, I will turn it over to Katie Soloff with Axio Charlotte. Go ahead, Katie.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for answering our questions this afternoon. I wanted to talk about the Transformational Mobility Network and how you see planning for that. moving forward, if Norfolk Southern remains pretty adamant in not being willing to share tracks with the city of Charlotte, how will this move forward if the red line is sort of stuck in the mud, as it were?
Well, I think it's stuck in a lot of overgrown weeds. The last time I was up in the area looking at it, it's really difficult to see that right of way with overgrowth and know what it means to this ability for this city, this county, and the region to be successful long term. So I think that we will continue to have the challenges with rail lines, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to provide the analysis and the data and the political will to continue this dialogue with Norfolk Southern, because it is really important. When you drive to the north and when you drive to Huntersville, where housing prices are $350,000 instead of $500,000 in our area, people are going to move where they can afford to live. And then they're going to get a job, and they're going to need to have the ability to get to work. Now, I believe that the mobility study is one of the most, it's like the third leg of the stool. We've approached and really delved into affordable housing, giving people a place to live. We have recruited over 16,000 jobs since this council has been elected. But now we have to make it possible for people to get from home to work in a reasonable amount of time so that they can have the quality of life that they choose. So when we talk about the commuter line, it's very important. But it's really important that we look beyond just what the commuter line can be, but what can we do in other ways. This mobility plan, the task force made recommendations that we actually look very closely at improving our bike lanes, improving sidewalks. All of these things are ways that people move around a city now, especially a growing city like ours, or need the ability to do that. And then I think in terms of our bus system, the northern towns have a robust circulator system in their area. But there's several or a lot of those folks that live there work in the center city. So we've got to figure out a way to make that work better. The express buses are doing well now, not just since during COVID, but they are we're projected 2 years out to get our growth back in that area. So we've got some time. And this time should be really used to figure out how to make this mobility plan realistic and viable, because people are coming. And our air quality is not what it needs to be. And we need to create opportunities for everyone to get to work, as I say, in a reasonable amount of time.
Our next question will go to Eric Spanberg with the Charlotte Business Journal. Go ahead, Eric.
Hello, Mayor. I want to follow up with a transit question for you, which has two parts. The first part is at Monday's meeting, the city manager apologized to you and the council for the change and shift in some of those numbers. And I'm wondering how that occurred, since you had been through the Cross Charlotte Trail circumstances where the city manager had blamed that on a lack of factoring in inflation and other factors. And then secondly, can you offer some perspective on the strategy going forward for dealing with the state to try and get a sales tax increase put to a referendum?
Well, thanks, Eric, for asking me a very easy and simple question. That was a joke, Eric. Laugh. You're supposed to laugh about that one. Okay. It is not a simple issue. As I said, we're talking about generational change here. And so when the task force, chaired by former Mayor Harvey Gantt, they were really asked to tell us how the plan should be shaped and formed. And yes, money is a part of it. But I don't think that task force, you can say the numbers were not correct, but I would say that the numbers were correct based on the assumptions of what they knew at the time, and without the benefit of the kind of rigorous work that you do if you're moving forward to make sure that something is going to be workable for us. And so now the city manager, apologize is a word that I think that he was able to say that we could have done better by. Well, I believe we are doing better by this. We have now gotten people that came in and said, well, we're not going to build everything at once because we know that that actually would hurt our economy and hurt the ability for us to get things done. Imagine if the entire county was torn up with construction. It's tough enough to get one project. And so now that we have a phased approach and now that we have better numbers, I think that we continue to examine it. I actually look forward to the council, especially those on the council member that like to dive into the finances in a very, take a deeper dive into the finances. I think that that's going to help us be stronger. And I think the future of the mobility plans financing will depend on the council engagement. And I say this because, many times people say, well, you're getting all of these presentations all the time. Yes, we are. But we have to own our role that those presentations begin to work. I believe committee work is foundational to council success. And having this work being done on both what we need to do and how we need to pay for it will be essential. And that is the only way that we can go to the state. I've worked with the mayors of the 6 towns. And people always say, well, the North is opposed to it, and that's right. But they fail to say the people in the South are really advocates for it. So it's just that sometimes we don't put the whole thing together. And I take that as an idea that once we get everyone around the table, that we will have better numbers, a better idea of what our vision is, and we will have the Biden administration's infrastructure bill if it passes. The opportunity that we have to go forward is in a competitive process. It will be solid. And I think that this community understands that and will work towards that direction.
Our next question will go back to Hunter Sines. Go ahead, Hunter.
Mayor Lyles, first off, I do want to thank you for your kind and supportive words. They matter from a leader like you. My next question, Mayor, will you urge the council to help David Tepper fund a new stadium in order to keep the Panthers in Charlotte? What's the latest on those conversations with the city?
Well, urging the city council, somebody might ask if that was really going to help Tepper or hurt him, So let me start there. No, seriously. We know the value of the sports and entertainment community. We know what they bring to this city. And right now, particularly in this moment, I am really excited about the upcoming Panther season. Because when you walk down Stonewall or if you're down on 4th Street or Mint Street and you see those crowds coming into the stadium, win or lose coming out, you see all of those hospitality venues full. The hotels are full. So I'm excited about football, and I think that we all see and recognize what it does in our center city and does for our community. And we also know that soccer is going to be just as exciting. I'm really thinking that soccer will appeal to a different audience than football. And imagine having both of those activated and working. We are in the process of now working on the entertainment district around the stadium, and we'll continue to work and follow up with the strategies, the comparables, what does it mean? And then after we get that district plan done, the entertainment district plan done, we'll begin to talk about how to address the stadium and how does it best benefit the people of Charlotte in a way that we can measure and discuss with the Tepper Sports Organization.
Our next question will go to Emma Withrow. Go ahead, Emma.
Mayor Lyles, why did you appoint a committee of citizens to review giving council raises, of which you said that's why you did it, but then the same committee also recommended moving to nonpartisan elections, which you didn't do? Why not?
Well, I don't take it personally, Emma. It's not what I did. If you'll recall, the task force, which was led at the time by both Cindy Patterson, a Democrat, and Amy, Peacock. Sorry, it took me a moment. Amy Peacock, who is a Republican. At the time, Cindy's husband got very, very ill. And so Amy was willing and did such an excellent job picking up this task force, which was appointed with Democrats and Republicans, to come in and give us a report. And if you recall, Amy came to the city council during one of our strategy sessions, and she gave a list of recommendations to the council. The council then had that on the council agenda and adopted the ones that came forward, which raises was one of those that the manager said that he would include an analysis in the recommended budget, and that came forward. I believe nonpartisan elections was debated, but not approved by the council. But there was also that portion of it that I want to thank the members of that group, Amy Peacock and all the folks that worked with her, because they gave us the foundation for the redistricting principles. They said, this is how you should redistrict the city, and that was a major initiative as well. So out of the, I believe, the 3 that I can recall right now, 2 of them came to fruition, and 1 was not approved by the council.
Before we get to Joe Bruno for the last question, my understanding is a couple of you had difficulty hearing me at the beginning of this, but just a quick reminder that video from today's press conference, a clean feed, will be uploaded to the Dropbox link from yesterday's media advisory. In addition to our print and online outlets, we will have some still photos from today's press conference that will also be uploaded to that Dropbox folder. And with that, our last question of the day will go to Joe Bruno.
Can you commit that the streetcar will finally open next month? And I mean, is the level has this project been acceptable to you?
Joe, thank you for the last question. I really appreciate it. I guess I need to come to South End and buy you a drink, right? The streetcar is absolutely valuable as you see the economic mobility that it is, or opportunities that it's created. How many of you have been down to Johnson C. Smith remount and Beatty's Ford Road where trade-ins and remount starts? And you look, there are streets down there that I did not even know existed, but now it's vibrant. That intersection, when I see moms with baby carriages pushing up to the ice cream shop or getting pizza, I know that many of those people move there because of the convenience of the mobility. That's why mobility is so important. I mean, it's what makes an urban community work, but that's another aside. What I believe the streetcar has done is reactivated, particularly the Beatty's Ford Road corridor, and it comes through, and we are moving all the way over to Plaza Midwood now. I also believe that we will always study and try to make the best mobility option available because things do change. And as people and communities express what they want to form and shape, then we will be able to follow their guidance. You know, government sometimes seems like it's located in this building, but government's not about a building. It's about people and meeting their needs that they have to live together safely, to be able to have the ability to support themselves. And that's what government is about. And I believe that the streetcar has been successful. I believe that we'll continue to look at any option, all of our mobility programs and options, our affordable housing programs, our jobs program, to ensure success for the residents of this community that have supported us so very well. So thank you, guys. Thanks very much. We'll do this again in another month. Bye.